What's up, everybody? Welcome to Late TV Fights. I'm the head sports admin, Director Master Jonathan Peck here. This time, not only going to host for this match, but also going to be judging this match right here. We had two very worthy competitors right here, which, and if you see any later TV Fights episode, I have personally dealt with and lose sparingly because of these two gentlemen. But we're not talking about that. Let's introduce to the competitors themselves. The person on my side right over here, though, is the person that actually beat me on my last appearance on Late TV Fight, Mr. Electric Ethan Klein. How you doing, Ethan?
Doing good. I'm doing good. This it feels weird to have to play the Godfather of TV fights in a TV fight. So I don't really know how to handle that. I don't know if I'm mentally prepared to take on Papa West.
I don't know, maybe the actual statement, or maybe just calling smack on Mr. West himself. Though, by the way, let's go into your competitor. We got Mr. Papa West himself. I don't know how many ranked dads you're up there, and well, you are, Mr. Papa West. How you been doing?
So right now I'm the 43rd favorite dad of the family community. I'm doing good. Ethan is hyping me up. Trust me, I'm not going to be as good in this as I am in other things. I just run it. Doesn't mean I know TV stuff. I just run the league. But now I'm good. I've been waiting to face Ethan in another league. It just happens to be this one that I finally get to do it. So let's do this.
All right. Let's get into our judges real quick. On my bottom of my screen right here, you can't see his face right now, and currently right now he's driving right here. We got Mr.
Spoiler
Ryan.
alert!
Whoa, sorry. Mr. Ryan Payne, how you been doing?
No, that was just to mess with you. But Jonathan, you forgot to mention. Not only am I driving, I'm also somebody who's had experience with Jacob West in a match that was unfairly ruled, and the result was truly set up against me. I mean, if people saw that match, they should know Jacob and I was given a question in the speed round we both knew nothing about, and instead of getting a new one, we had to research it on the spot, which it just deletes and destroys the purpose of a speed round. You're supposed to do it off the top of your head. But, those little cups aside, I'm actually looking forward to seeing how Jacob and Ethan will debate in this match.
Same thing for me, though. To be fair, I was there that incident right here, and I'm not going to tell you exactly what happened. All I need to say
That
is...
was a fun speed round.
If you say so. All right, let's go to
technically, knowing the fact that Jacob and I play each other, people already know who won.
All right, let's go into our other judge right here, and we got quote the champ in the bottom right here, Mr. Joe Farrelly. How you doing, Joe?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Definitely excited to watch these two fight. Going to be fun. Looking forward to it. I always like a good, well-researched, well-reasoned argument. I'm looking forward to seeing what they come up with. I haven't seen the questions, so it's all going to be nice and fresh for me. No biases here. Very much looking forward to this.
All right. Good indeed. All right, just before we start the match, let's get some of the ground rules. For those of people who are moving on to Late TV, if I hear the rules, is this. We start with a 90-second opening right here. 5 minutes will begin when you begin during the argument, and 60 seconds will be done when you're closing. Both of the players right here have both one-minute extensions that only used for the opening and closing arguments only right here throughout the 4 questions. And basically, if you use them, I would like to use a 1-minute extension. And very much, that's all the rules so far. If we get to the speed round, though, I'll expect more differently than the current argument. So, just want to make sure our players ready to go.
Yeah, right. Sorry.
It's okay. That's all right. All right. Let's do this. Let's start with these 2 fights right here. And let's binge into round number 1, which is Papa West's strength of The Office. And basically, it surrounds our character, Michael Scott. And it's pretty much some people like Michael Scott. There's some certain people they don't like Michael Scott, but many tasteless or insensitive things. And this question brings up a very interesting one, is this. what was the most insensitive thing done by Michael Scott in The Office? So, since this is Papa West's strength, we're going to start with him with his selection.
All right. One great thing about Michael Scott is he does all these stupid things without realizing it. It really makes for a funny predicament when that happens. But most of the time, it's just him. Sometimes he throws Dwight in along. But the most insensitive thing ever in The Office has to be when it was not only him and Dwight, but Michael forced the entire office to join him. The thing I'm talking about is Diversity Day, when Michael got the entire office to put index cards on their forehead of races on them and make other people make jokes, do racial stereotypes, whatever. So people had to guess what their race was. Not only is this the most insensitive thing ever because he did it, but also because he forced everyone else to do it with him. And if you don't think that's insensitive, the man got slapped for it. Literally in front of Kelly, who had no idea what was going on, just goes straight up to her and starts screaming, "How's your goosey goo? Let me try your goosey goo!" And she slaps him because of how racially insensitive it was. Exactly why. This is the most insensitive thing he has ever done. Time.
All right. Very
4
good.
seconds left.
First second left on the spot. We got Jacob's selection with Diversity Day right here, which is another good look on that one. Let's go with Ethan with his selection. What is worse than this?
So for me, the most insensitive thing that Michael has ever done, bar none, hands down, is how he handled the outing of Oscar and his homosexuality. What makes this so over the top insensitive, what makes this the absolute worst, is how personal in nature it is for Oscar. For some, as far as I've been told, obviously I'm not homosexual myself, but as far as I've been told, that is one of the most personal things that someone who is homosexual can go through, is announcing that to the people that they know. He robs Oscar of that opportunity by telling the entire office that he is homosexual. Whether or not Oscar was ever going to do that, that's totally Oscar's right to either tell people or not tell people. He steals that from him. And then to try to make it better in some way, if there was any way to make that better, he forces Oscar to kiss him in front of everyone as a way to say that he's okay with Oscar being gay, when Oscar is openly telling him, "Michael, this is not how I want this handled, and I definitely am not attracted to you." So it is very personal in nature. It is one-on-one. It's robbing Oscar of this very momentous opportunity, whether he wants to take it or not. And then he caps it off by forcing himself upon Oscar in front of his co-workers. Not only doing what Oscar doesn't want him to do, but also embarrassing him in the process.
Time.
All right. Who really insensitive things, and I'm not saying that. Let's start with the 5-minute debate with one of you begins talking.
So here's the thing with the outing of Oscar. It was all done by accident. Literally earlier in the episode, he called him a fag because that's something he does all the time. He didn't realize that was upsetting to people. He didn't realize Oscar was gay. And when Oscar brought it up to Toby, Michael even said, "Fag is something I just call people all the time." Now, in the real world, yes, you should not call people fags, but again, this is a TV show. And then he's trying to make it better with talking to Oscar, bringing it up in front of the office, and then trying to kiss him. He's trying to prove that, hey, I am not this big insensitive jerk that you think I am. I'm okay with Oscar being gay.
I mean, all of those points show Michael's ignorance, but ignorance isn't an excuse for insensitivity. I mean, like you said, you brought up the word that he kept using. That word in and of itself, no matter if it's a joke or not, is an incredibly insensitive term. And the fact that he is trying to cover it up with, no, I'm just kidding. No, I'm okay. He never openly admits, Oscar, I have wronged you. Oscar, this was not okay for me to do. Kissing you is not okay. He just keeps trying to double down and say, no, this is fine. This is what I mean. Instead of asking Oscar, why are you upset about this? What is your issue with this? He keeps trying to say, no, I was right. And here's how I'll make it better, instead of just kind of falling on that sword and moving on. That's what makes it so awful, because not only does he take that opportunity from Oscar, but then he doesn't give Oscar the opportunity to work through it on his own.
Yeah, but it's still trying to show that he likes to fix his own mistakes, not by asking Oscar what to do, but by critically thinking, hey, what can I do to right the situation? It does not work for him, but he is still trying to fix it, which makes it a lot better, in my opinion.
Well, first, I mean, I don't know if Michael Scott's ever critically thought about anything. He kind of just does it by the seat of his pants, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, it's incredibly insensitive the way that he handles it. And in terms of the repercussions of the action, I think that also shows the degree of insensitivity, because if you look at Diversity Day, it includes everyone, but at the same time, like the stereotypes, they're broad in their nature, and it is Michael, when he's doing it, everyone is kind of looking at him like, oh, this is another thing that Michael does, whatever, and they move on from it. Whereas the repercussions of what he does to Oscar, first off, everyone is horrified watching him try to kiss Oscar. No one is handling it well. People do go along with Diversity Day. There are some people in the office who do embrace it because of Michael's stupidity.
Just
and move forward.
Just
well, okay, but I think other people, no one at least stands up. Like, there's not a majority of the people in the office that are like, we need to quit this now. Whereas everyone is horrified by Michael forcing himself on Oscar, and the company themselves step in and give Oscar paid vacation and a company car because they know how awful it is what he did. Diversity Day is never mentioned again. There are no consequences to it.
I mean, I think it's weird that you're trying to say, hey, the fact that they make Oscar gay and make him gay throughout the entire season makes yours better. That's just a character development thing right there. With Diversity Day, I mean, you said like a lot of the stereotypes are broad. It's because it's a lot of the people like, hey, I don't want to go on with this, so I'm just going to play the game because I know if I don't, it's going to make it so much worse with Michael. I'm just going to play the game and try to get by with as little as I can. Really with Diversity Day, yeah, I mean, Dwight's the only one actually getting involved when someone said, you're horrible at driving. Oh man, am I a woman? And it ends up being Chinese. No one else is partaking in it. Everyone else is just being as quiet as they can.
Well, okay, so again, though, I think that makes my point that you're saying they do still play the game because they just want to go along, get along, and move forward, whereas everyone is visibly against Michael bringing everyone together to try to kiss Oscar. Everyone is clearly showing we do not want this to continue. We don't want, there's no get along to go along. There is just complete, we are against this. And I wasn't saying that them making him gay makes mine better. What I'm saying is, in the world of the show, the company, Dunder Mifflin, found out about this incident and stepped in and said, we need to do some damage control because of how bad Michael just messed up. Whereas that never happened with Diversity Day.
The actual repercussions, though, you hardly ever see. It's only mentioned a couple times.
All right. Okay. Very good arguments for both of you. And since Jacob's going first with this string, we'll go with Ethan for his 60-second closing. The timer will begin when you begin talking.
Obviously, it's hard to draw lines on insensitivity, but I would say the reason that his handling of Oscar's outing is the far more insensitive occurrence is because of how personal it is in nature. It is truly targeted, whether on purpose or not, at one specific person who is embarrassed multiple times throughout this episode, in front of the entire office. First, by everyone finding out he's gay. Secondly, by Michael forcing himself upon him. That is two different things that are equally insensitive, that create the entire insensitive action. Again, there's repercussions for this action. There are no repercussions from Diversity Day. And at the end of all of it, everyone is truly horrified by this action from Michael. No one goes along to get along. Everybody looks at what occurred. Everyone is not okay with what happened. And at the end of the day, Oscar is singled out. He's outed. And because of that personal nature, it is the most insensitive.
All right. Right on the timer right here. Let's go with Papa West for his closing. The timer begins when you begin talking.
All right, so I just want to build up on what I was ending that 5 minutes on. The whole repercussions of Oscar getting the company car, he gets that vacation from corporate. We really only see, hey, right after that episode, he's gone for a couple episodes, and then he gets back. They don't really dwell on, hey, remember that time that Oscar got outed by Michael? So you're making it a big deal, but it really isn't that much of a big deal in the entire show. Yes, he's gay throughout the entire show, but they never talk about, hey, you remember that one time this happened? With Diversity Day, they just got done with training that Michael didn't think that they got something out of. So he's forcing everyone to partake. And yeah, they're not like, hey, this is wrong. We should stop doing this, because they just want to get it over with. They know if they cooperate, it'll be done. And again, all the racial stereotypes that Michael gives out during this definitely is worse than calling someone gay.
Time.
All right. Okay. Just before we right here, let's say from our judges write down who. Gonna start with Ryan right here for who, based on the arguments themselves, and who gets the point in your eyes.
Well, it's a landslide choice here. It's Ethan gets the point. I mean, Jacob had a great choice by using Diversity Day as for his example. The problem is that he spent so much time attacking Ethan's episode, he didn't give enough time to explain why Michael's attitude and his choices during Diversity Day was the worst. I mean, I was kind of waiting for you, Jacob, to bring up the fact that Michael Scott throughout the whole thing puts Martin Luther King above his head as in order to make himself look like he's higher above than everybody else in the office, but you didn't bring that up. While Ethan, he kept bringing up so many extra points to why Michael, for accidentally revealing Oscar being gay and then constantly double downing on the whole thing instead of, as he mentioned, as Ethan says, instead of being an actual person and telling Oscar, I'm sorry I hurt you, or what about this bothers you, Michael, like the idiot and the ignorant man that he's made in the show, keeps double down on his mistakes. And I like how he talks about there was consequences afterwards. So Ethan gets the point.
All right. We got 1-0 Ethan. Let's go with the champ itself, Joe Farrelly, for what do you think of the argument? Who gets a point in your eyes?
Well, firstly, I'd just like to commend both competitors here for using alliteration in their answers. We had Diversity Day and Outing Oscar, so points for that all round. But for me, my point also goes to Ethan. I just think he was a lot more clear on how personal it was, how he took the moment from Oscar, how it really showed his ignorance, and about the repercussions. Jacob did mention very briefly repercussions, saying that Michael got slapped for it. But it got mentioned once in the opening. It wasn't anything he revisited when Ethan was bringing up the constant repercussions. And also about how Ethan mentioned that it's moved on from pretty quickly, how the company stepped in, everything about that, everyone horror. And it was the reactions of everybody else in the office that also maybe go towards Ethan for that point.
All right, with that, Ethan scores number one. Mine, same thing as both of you. Mine would have been a sort of a clean sweep. My point would have gone to Ethan. Same thing, both of you point out. And Jacob, you kind of missed right here. Really missed out some opportunities right here, trying to point something out. I was kind of waiting for you to explain more the why Diversity Day or some other examples right here, why it was kind of more worse than Ethan. And Ethan just point out his why is worse and also sort of the consequences afterwards. So my point would have gone to Ethan also. With that, Ethan scores the first point 1-0. Let's go into round number two. Round number two, which is Ethan's strength of MTV's Teen Wolf. The show I'm actually familiar with. Pretty much all the episodes from the very beginning. So just a little interesting to mention Teen Wolf on this big TV fight right here. And bring this question is this. Which two characters had the worst on-screen chemistry of the Teen Wolf TV series. So since this is Ethan's strength, so we're going with him with his selection.
When I saw this question got asked, I almost sent my answer in too early because it was not my right to answer this question first. I had it as soon as I saw the question, it popped into my head, and I said, please just let me have this. I am ready to rock and roll with this answer. Luckily, I was able to go with it, and it is Scott and Malia. It pains me to think about this. This show is, bar none, my favorite guilty pleasure TV show of all time. I've watched it through twice entirely. Maybe I should be ashamed to say that. I'm not. I love the show. What I don't love is the final season of the show, which is so sad and probably why I don't really argue why people should watch it, because it falls apart at the end. And what's the biggest reason that it falls apart at the end? The fact that they try to go with Scott and Malia as the final love interest to send this show out, because it starts so strong with a love interest for Scott. His chemistry with Allison in the first few seasons is through the roof. They are great with each other. And then his love interests just slowly go down until it falls into the black hole abyss that is Malia. They start her off with Styles, who's the best actor on the show. He carries the show. It's great. They have a good back and forth because she's kind of a fish out of water. He's awkward. It works really, really well. Then they just never address why that relationship falls apart. It just stops being what it is. They send him back to a different person. Then he's out of the show because he's acting. They don't know where else to go. They use Scott and Malia, and it is horrendous to watch these two act across from one another. No chemistry, no love, ruins what to me was a great show.
All right. The choice is with Scott and Malia right here, which, yeah, is very much itself. Let's go with Papa West for his selection.
All right, so the actual correct answer is Derek and Jennifer. A couple that aren't really together for long, together by accident, kind of, because Derek accidentally saves Jennifer's life with blood sacrifices. Teen Wolf's a weird show. I'm just openly say it. But they're one of the weirdest couples, just because, I mean, he's constantly abusing her. He locks her in a boiler room. She's able to heal herself. He's abusive to her, but she's obsessed with him because he saved her life. So she's grateful for that. And also, like, one of the weirdest sex scenes too in any TV show. They just do not work in the writing at all. They also don't work together at all. So yeah, the correct answer, Derek and Jennifer. Time.
All right.
Dang.
All right. Interesting choices for both of you right here. Start out with the fights itself. 5-minute argument. When one of you begins talking.
So to me, the biggest thing here is that Derek and Jennifer aren't supposed to have chemistry. She is a bad guy. She is supposed to be getting in with the group so that she can attack the group. Derek plays his role for what it is. He lost his entire family. He struggles to find love. He is kind of that tragic hero story of the show. So he is often distant from people, and that comes across in his relationship with Jennifer. And from her end, because the show is an MTV show and they don't try to be too heady, everything always kind of happens like, did you catch that? Did you catch that? It is painfully obvious that she is a bad guy. They aren't supposed to have chemistry. We're not supposed to get attached to their relationship because that relationship is going to explode when she reveals who she truly is.
So just because they're not supposed to doesn't help out that the fact that they really don't. And I realize, they're not supposed to, and that works, but they're still together. They still write them together as a couple, and you can't negate the fact that they're not supposed to have chemistry, and they don't have chemistry, and it just makes it so bad. Your biggest problem with Scott and Malia is you didn't like that they took Scott away from the other girl, and I cannot think of her name right now. I'm sorry about that, but you're just upset that they took him from her and gave him to someone else, and they rush it. So it's not meeting the same expectation of that one, but it's still a lot better than Derek and Jennifer.
No, actually, I would say the boldest thing that show ever did was taking Allison away from Scott. I thought that was a great choice, and it was a beautiful story moment for Scott. My issue with Scott and Malia is that they, maybe at the final season, are the two worst actors in the show, and they decided to put the crux of that season on those two actors, and they failed horrendously. And I think it does matter who is supposed to end up together, because at the end of the day, Derek and Jennifer, that does not affect the show. They are not supposed to be a successful couple. She is bad. She is faking it. and she's doing her job as an actress. She's faking an attraction to him so she can gain his trust and turn on him, and Derek doesn't trust anybody, so that's fine. Scott and Malia, we are supposed to believe that when this is all said and done, they will ride off into the sunset together and be happy. And at no point when those two look at each other on screen do I ever believe that those two could be happy together, because they have zero level of attraction to each other. It is hands down the weirdest and most uncomfortable sex scene in that entire show, because they look like they know they should not be with one another, but we're still going to try this weird shower thing. It's uncomfortable.
Derek and Jennifer's was worse, so. And again, your biggest thing is because they weren't, because the show has Jennifer getting into the group, infiltrating to break them up, that they're not supposed to. It doesn't matter that they're not supposed to. They still don't, and it makes it worse. There are some moments between Scott and Malia where you can believe that's a real couple. I mean, you think that shower sex scene is weird. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. There's actually a little bit of chemistry going on in that, whereas every second of Derek and Jennifer tongue-tied for a second, it's just these two are awkward together, and I cannot stand it. I want them away.
But here's my thing, though. There's two different dynamics going on here. From the get-go, Derek and Jennifer is supposed to be a lustful relationship. They meet, and any level of attraction they have for each other is entirely physical, whereas Malia and Scott are supposed to build a relationship on love. These two are supposed to convey to us that they are kindred spirits, that they've known each other for this entire time. They haven't had the opportunity to be together, and now finally they're finding this opportunity in this chaos to come together and to build a real relationship. Derek and Jennifer are never asked to build a real relationship, and they don't. Malia and Scott are asked to do that, and the actors fail because they don't know how to act across one another, because it was a flawed storyline, it was a haphazardly done storyline, and the two never had that opportunity to build a chemistry with each other, and it ruins the final season of the show.
But a lot of people actually were kind of rooting for that to be a thing. The biggest issue with that relationship, again, they took Allison away from Scott, which a lot of people liked, and then they just rushed Malia in. But there was still that little bit of connection. It still wasn't the worst thing we've ever seen. Derek and Jennifer, on the other hand, I mean, if you Google the worst couples, Derek and Jennifer is the first picture. The picture is him choking her, and it says, "This picture shows it all."
All right. Bring a little interesting, a little weird to talk about weird sex scenes and MTV stuff. Well, that's MTV in general, so they don't understand all that stuff. So, all right. Let's go into our closing arguments. We're gonna start with Papa West, since this is Ethan's strength right here. So, 60 seconds will be the closing argument. Will begin when you begin talking.
So, Ethan, I will agree with you. Both of these couples are not great couples, and it does show. But with Scott and Malia, it has moments where you can actually say, hey, this is a good couple. Again, there are those downfalls of, hey, Scott and Allison was one of the greatest relationships ever, and they took Allison away from Scott and gave him Malia, and then they just rushed that relationship to try to get it the same. So it's not as good, but it still has its moments where you can believe those two are together. Whereas Derek and Jennifer, everyone was so thankful when Jennifer died, because Derek was trying to get away from her and couldn't because she was obsessed with him. Finally, she dies. He's finally done with them. We're finally done with both of them together. We don't have to see that anymore. Scott and Malia, still together. So if they ever want to bring it back, they're still together. We're still stuck with that. But at the same time, we're not stuck with it, because there are moments where it's good, and it can always get better.
Time.
All right. Let's go with Ethan's right here. Let's his closing. Timer begins. We begin talking.
Up until the final season, Scott and Malia's relationship is completely platonic. In fact, it is familial in a lot of ways. She is with his best friend when she is first introduced into the show. He is the alpha leader of her pack. He is her leader. He is her older brother. And then, because they ran out of ideas, they forced these two to try to build a romantic relationship. It looks awkward. It is awkward. It is painful. It is two of the worst actors in the show trying to somehow just pull chemistry out of thin air that they don't have. Derek and Jennifer were given parts to play. She is secretly a bad guy. Derek is distant from everyone that he comes in contact with. And Tyler Hoechlin is able to play that part. He remains distant from her, not because he's a bad actor with bad chemistry, because that is what he is meant to do. And we know that he does have acting ability because he still has an acting career after this show. Whereas neither Scott or Malia, neither of those actors have done anything. Why? Because they're not good actors. And when you put two bad actors together, chemistry doesn't magically happen, and it's awful here.
Time.
All right, fellow judges. Let's write down the player who you think who deserves the point. Thumbs up, and you got it. All right, get a thumbs up for Ryan. All right, got mine's ready, and then Joe's thumbs up right here. All right, let's go on with Joe on this one right here. So, Joe, what do you think of the argument as a whole, and who deserves a point in your eyes?
Both really great arguments. Definitely, last round I think we all agree was a bit of a clean sweep. This was definitely more close. For me, I'm going to give my point to Jacob on this one, and it's for the following reasons. The question was about which characters had the worst on-screen chemistry, and I know that Ethan brought it up in his argument that they were supposed to not have chemistry. I don't think that didn't take away anything from Jacob's argument for me. They weren't supposed to have chemistry. They didn't have chemistry, and Jacob was the only one that mentioned in this argument that the other two had moments. Scott and Malia had moments that made them a good couple, even if they were brief. And there was nothing from Ethan about any moments that Derek and Jennifer had. So for that reason, I'm going with Jacob.
All right. One point is to Jacob. I'm just going to Mia right here. I'm actually gonna defer on this one. I actually will give my point to Ethan because during his argument, he pointed out that with Derek and Jennifer, though, it was not meant to be a couple. And when he said it, that Jennifer was supposed to manipulate Derek right here, and Derek normally doesn't sort of mainly trust people all that much. So if he kind of let his guard down right here, he put some good examples, and he put some great points with Scott and Malia are really the worst couple, and you can see sort of the chemistry based on the actors themselves maybe just doesn't gel well into the final season as a whole. So I'm actually will give my point to Ethan. So going to Mr. Payne right here. You're basically the deciding factor, and who gets a point in your eyes?
Oh, I thought it was already like a landslide. Okay. Okay. Well, of course, listening to these arguments, I mean, to be honest, I'm only familiar with like half of the show Teen Wolf, but even then that didn't influence it. What I got from the arguments was clear that with Jacob choosing Derek and forgot her name again. It was pretty much like when you look at the relationship in general, it feels like an unhealthy and maybe sort of physically or emotionally abusive relationship. And then with Ethan's choice of Scott and Malia, felt like more of a bad cop out, like a bad payoff, or like the writers were just like these two were just settling for each other instead of them being like not endgame, but actually a love story you can actually believe. And going through the arguments and the conclusions, I heard much more rebuttal and counterpoints from Ethan, honestly, because when he talked about some of the things that, okay, first off, Ethan gets the point. Because when Jacob was listing off some of the things about Derek and that girl's relationship, Ethan countered back to the fact that it's because you look at the narrative, they're meant to be like a very almost like not just like a lustful relationship. People who are just attracted to each other and came together under circumstances, and the fact that that girl turned out to be a bad guy and that she was nothing but a plot device does add weight to why that relationship wasn't working in the first place. So Ethan gets a point.
All right. With that, we got 2-0 Ethan with a huge lead right here. And let's go into 3. And this is a very crucial one to Papa West right here. He needs to get this point to stay alive right here. When Ethan gets the point in round 3, he will win by knockout. So let's go into round number 3 with this. Which TV comedy dad will make the best real-life dad? This is a very interesting question that I just put out. So let's start with Papa West with his selection.
Hank Hill, everyone's favorite father of King of the Hill. Small town of Arlen, Texas, where he sells propane and propane accessories. He would make the best real-life TV dad. He's not afraid to tell you when you disappoint him, but he'll always tell you he loves you. He'll always help you out and make it to where you're doing better. And he's always there for you too. Plus, you get to be around him. You get to be around the other three whenever they're out drinking beer, talking. You get to hear those stories. Yeah, Hank Hill would be a good dad. So that's why I pick Hank Hill as the best real-life TV dad. Time.
Okay.
All right. We got to check a selection of Mr. Hank Hill of King of the Hill itself. Thank you. All right. Let's go with Ethan with his selection.
So my selection is Mike Baxter from the show Last Man Standing, portrayed by Tim Allen. And the reason I went with him was because he shows to me some of the greatest qualities of being a father, some of the imperfect qualities that all fathers should have, and the ability to embrace those imperfect moments, to do what he needs to do to show his family how much he loves them. Time and again throughout this show, his views and his opinions are so diametrically opposed. He's a man's man. He's a macho man. That's what he's made his money on, is being a man's man. And he lives in a house with 4 women. He has 3 daughters. But even with that opposition, even with the views that he probably disagrees with, and he certainly disagrees with his older daughter on her views and her husband's views, what he does at the end of the day throughout every episode is show his children time and again, we may disagree, but I will always have your back. I will always support you. I will always be your #1 fan and cheerleader and do everything I have to do to protect you and to embrace what you are doing, as long as what you are doing is working hard and making a life for yourself. As long as you take responsibility for what you're doing, as long as you're passionate about it, I will have that same passion, even if I disagree with it. Does he make jokes along the way? Absolutely he does. But that makes him also the funny dad. The most important thing he does, though, is support those children each and every time, and that is why he's the best TV dad.
All right. Very 2 interesting picks with Hank Hill from King of the Hill, Mac Baxter, the Tim Allen character from Last Man Standing. The 5-minute debate will begin when he begins talking.
Yeah, so you're right. He will be your biggest cheerleader, but he is going to demean you and pretty much make fun of you on his video blog. Pretty much he is letting the world know about all these problems passive aggressively. So you have to watch that. America is watching that, and they can kind of tell what all's going on. So when you go to school the next day or talk to your friends, they're gonna be like, they're gonna know what's going on in your life. With a lot of stuff that should be kept secret, he just throws out all in the open. I don't see how that's the best dad.
I would say on every single one of those video blogs, first off, he never names anyone in his family. He never calls them out specifically. What he does is, in a tongue-in-cheek way, recap what has happened to him recently in his life and then spin it into something that he's learned from it. And I think that's the biggest thing. He's not always trying to say, haha, I taught you something. There are plenty of times that he's very willing in those moments to say, I learned this because of a different situation that I was in. So he doesn't always have to be right. Yes, he does that. That's his job. That's how he makes money. That's how he puts food on the table and a roof over their heads, is those videos. He never openly says, my daughter is stupid or my daughter is this. He says, this thing happened. Everyone in his family knows what he's talking about. No one in the world is going to be able to be like, it was this person that did this exact thing. It's his way of admitting what's going on in his life and openly saying at times, I've learned something today.
well, again, the world doesn't know exactly what's going on because he does do it tongue in cheek. If you know the family, you know what's going on. And right there, family business, he just threw out to the world. He did it so tongue in cheek that the world doesn't know. But since you know the family, you know what's going on, and you can read in between the lines of what he's saying. And another thing, his job really isn't the video blogs. I mean, his job is the assistant manager of Outdoor Man. It just so happened that people liked watching him venting again about family stuff that should stay in the family. People enjoyed watching him vent like that, and it built. Here's another thing too: you can't always count on Mike Baxter to be there for you because he's married to his job. I mean, whenever he was raising you, most of the time he wasn't there because he was out writing the journals for Outdoor Man magazine. He was out doing these wild things, out looking at the world, and not with you or with his family. Another reason why he would not be the best dad.
Actually, I think that is a moment that shows that he's a good dad. He was never a perfect dad. He was not the perfect dad from the beginning when his first daughter was born because he was doing those things, but he realized that I want to be a present dad and I want to watch my kids grow up. So he gave up something that he absolutely loved doing, was actually being out in the world, and he transitioned. How can I still honor my job, make money, but be home? Because he is home. And throughout the entirety of the show, what we see of Mike Baxter, he has never at one time let his children down. Yes, he may make jokes to them. He may even test them to see if they're really passionate about what they stand on. He wants them to be able to say with conviction, this is what I believe in, but he has never abandoned them, and he has always been by their side. He has driven in the middle of the night across state lines to be there for his youngest daughter when she was trying to get into the ROTC. He will do anything, any time of the day for any of his kids. I mean, we don't need to just completely focus on Mike Baxter either. The thing with Hank Hill, you said it yourself. I mean, just kind of in your opening statement, the way I feel about Hank Hill is that he is just there. He just kind of exists. Yeah, his friends are funny. Yeah, he has beers with them. But at no point in that show have I ever gone, that's an exact example of an over the top, that's the dad I want. He just is. We just kind of see life with him.
Well, I mean, he did coach Bobby's football team, something not a lot of dads would do when they needed a coach. Plus, I mean, there were so many times Bobby would have a bad day at school. Hank would be right there talking to him. Plus, with Luann, not even his daughter, his, I believe, niece, anytime she was having issues, he was always there to talk to her. He would always help her out. He always had her back. So really, to me, it sounds like both Mike Baxter and Hank Hill are very similar. It's just Hank had been there since day one. Yes, Mike decided, hey, I want to be home, but it was 20 years too late. He already missed all these things. Plus, in, I believe it's season 3, it opens with him coming back from another tour that he did of the world. So it's not like he's back forever. He will still leave.
Time. All right. Let's go into our closing right here. Since Checo go first, let's go with Ethan for his closing. Timer begins. We begin talking.
Hank Hill is an everyman, so coaching a football team to him would be easy. It's something that he already wanted to do. What Mike Baxter shows time and again is the willingness to do what he does not want to do to connect with his children. He knows nothing about fashion, but his middle daughter wants to open her own fashion line in their basement. He doesn't want her still living at home, but she needs the help. He's willing to put aside what he wants for what his child wants. His oldest daughter marries someone who is the exact opposite of him. He parents different than him. He believes politically different than him. And all he wants to do is for his daughter to not be with this man, but she is. And at the end of the day, that man respects his daughter and takes care of his daughter. So he is, again, willing to put that aside because that man is now a part of his family. And for a father to be able to accept his daughter's family, even if he disagrees with some of his views, that is another reason, another thing that makes it so important to be a father. And he was not 20 years too late. His oldest daughter says time and again, memories that she has of her entire life of him being there for her.
All right. Pretty good closing for Ethan right here. Let's go with Jacob for his closing. Timer begins. We begin talking.
but he still missed pivotal moments in their life, and he still would go to these things for his work. I mean, you can say, hey, you have to work to provide for your family, but there were so many things he could do. He lived in Denver, Colorado. Hank Hill, the time the propane business shut down, he worked for Super Save, the place that he hated. He worked for to provide for his family. He never did anything that would jeopardize him. He always put his family first. Where Mike Baxter, it was always him first. Plus, passive aggressively taking all this stuff that's for the family and putting it out in his video blogs. Passive aggressive, so the average Joe didn't know what was going on 100% of the time. But still, if you knew anything about that family, you knew what was going on. And what he does to his oldest daughter's fiance, and what he does to their kid, and always taking back what they teach him to teach him.
Time. All right, my fellow judges, just write down the person you got in the argument. All right, got thumbs up from Joe. Ready for you, Ryan. Got mine ready to go. Right, sorry. Okay, we got a thumbs up from Ryan. I'm going to start with me. Mine, very good choices for the dads themselves. And Jacob, I was kind of waiting for you to want some more examples of why Hank Hill is a great dad, though. During your closing, I think you put it too late, though. You should have put it more during the arguments. Right here, he would have put. I wish you could have put an example that Hank itself is not only loyal, great father itself, but also a loyal husband along with it. Because even some of the best moments of King of the Hill, though, when Hank said no to the boss's mistress right here. Also, the funny moment when he says, I just never grunt, and Hank said, well, I just did. And I was kind of waiting for that. Some instances kind of like that. The why is, well, not only a great bad, would have been a great real life guy right here would be loyal, though. I feel like Ethan had put some more examples that why Mike Baxter would be a good example of a dad you might need. So I would have got my point to Ethan right here. So let's go and head out to Mr. Joe Farrelly right here, though. This is very crucial right here. Let's see who you got.
Looks like we're putting the pressure on Ryan again, because my point is going to Jacob, and it's for the following reasons. Jacob brought up the fact that he'll perfectly happy to tell his kids when he loves them and when he's disappointed in them. I think he brought up, I think there was a lot more attacks on Mike Baxter than there were on Hank Hill. I thought the stuff about working somewhere he didn't like to support his family, coaching the football team, always there to talk. Whereas the attacks on Mike Baxter about demeaning them to the world on his blog or being married to his job, I just think Jacob's arguments were a lot stronger. So I'm giving him the point.
Okay, 1-1 tie. Okay, Ryan, it's up to you. Your sort of design vote. What you got?
Okay. This one actually was going back and forth for me, actually, because there was a lot of the arguments, honestly, between the both of you guys was kind of like Swiss cheese. Like, there was opportunities to attack or to rebound, and it felt like both of you were not really taken advantage of, but that's a conversation at another time. But my point is actually going to go to Jacob here, because he kept staying focused on the attack on Mike's character. Yes, Eden had a great comeback with saying yes, but he was always there for his kids. And he did give some great examples, though, but normally it would be seen as a negative for the fact that that Ethan didn't attack Hank a lot. Well, yeah, it would be seen as a negative that Ethan didn't do more attacks on Hank and Jacob didn't defend Hank. But the fact that Jacob was able to keep the pressure on Ethan's choice kind of worked out towards the end. And Jacob may have brought in some late points here, but still, some of the stuff he was able to get in kind of stayed within its own pockets, where Ethan spent more time defending his pick instead of attacking those small little points he brought up. So Jacob gets the point.
All right. Jacobs avoids the knockout. We got 2-1. All right. This is going to be everybody's game right here. Let's go into round number 4. Jacob needs this point right here to tie the game. Ryan, if you get this right here, you will win the match. Let's go into round number 4. Round number 4 is a very interesting one because basically is this. Following the success of The Witcher on Netflix with the announcement of Last of Us coming to HBO, this question is this. What other video game property should get a mini-series adaptation following the success of The Witcher? And that hasn't been adapted yet. So this is a very interesting question to point up to the table. I'm going to start off with Ethan for his selection.
My choice for this is the video game Heavy Rain. And the reason I picked this is because while it is becoming somewhat of a trend to do police and detective stories. That's been a trend for decades. The key is doing it a little bit differently. And what we haven't seen, at least from the HBO, from the mature streaming services, is a story that goes the way that Heavy Rain does. We have 4 central main characters. We have insane plot twists, and really the key from the game is that it can end numerous different ways. So the creators of the show would not be hamstrung by you have to do it point by point by point. What they are given really are 4 characters that are very rich, very diverse in what they're going through, and what the game offers is an opportunity to go across genres. It won't just be a cop show. It does bring in sci-fi aspects. It is very, very serious drama. It is a romance in some ways. It can also be a horror show going down the path of the father trying to get back his son. He has to do some very, very grotesque things to himself to test the limits of, we just got done talking about what makes a good father. His character tests the limits of fatherhood. We have tormented characters. We have great plot twists. Where would they go with it? I don't know, but they have so many different avenues because the groundwork has been laid by the game.
All right. We got Ethan's choice of Heavy Rain. I'm very familiar with that game indeed. It's very underrated one. I should have said it myself. Let's go into Jacob right here for his selection.
One of the most underrated video game characters is Samus Aran. She has been a character that most people have fallen in love with since the 80s. And we've only had a couple games with her, a couple of her own games. We've also seen her in Smash, but we don't know a lot about her. So that's why Metroid, the game that she is a part of, for those who do not know, would make the best game to be a miniseries. Plain and simple, the series is going to be her looking for Ridley, her arch nemesis, who also was just introduced in Smash Bros. Because Ridley did something very bad to her. Ridley killed both of her parents. And so now she is a bounty hunter, which one of the coolest uniform, or one of the coolest outfits ever she dons. But you see her going around fighting the crime of the universe, set in space, great set pieces, getting to these crime bosses, beating them to an inch of their life, and holding them. Where's Ridley? Oh, I don't know. He was here last time. And kills him. Next episode goes on, same thing. Great adventure, vengeance drama. I want to see this yesterday.
Time.
All right. We got Heavy Rain versus Metroid. Relax, this is not a Game Zone question right here. This is actually for a TV fight right here, though. Just want to make that clear. All right, let's go into debate. 5 minutes. Will one of you begin stalking?
So, bounty hunter that wears armor, going across space, trying to accomplish a mission each week. Sounds like The Mandalorian, and I saw it, and they did it really well. I don't know if I want to turn around and see it again. Heavy Rain offers us a cop story, sure, but a cop story in a way that has never been told. The futuristic aspect that the FBI agent uses, the sci-fi technology that he uses to map a scene, the drug problems that he has that make him question am I seeing the sci-fi elements, the tech that I have, or am I just in the world right now because I am dealing with so many repercussions of my drug addiction? So you have that whole storyline, and that's just one character. You get 4 of those that they can interweave each week and change where the story goes week to week. You just said yourself, at the end of the day, this would be, what's my next mission? What's my next mission? I'm going to kill this guy. I'm going to kill that. We've seen those shows. I want depth. I want true characters that I can watch go through the story, this horrific story, trying to find this lost child. What is he going through? What are the parents going through? We get to see every aspect of it told through genres that it's not normally told through.
Thank you for doing the Mandalorian reference. I didn't even realize that till earlier today when I was studying for this. Crap, this is the Mandalorian. But you know what? The Mandalorian is some of the best Star Wars that we've seen in years. So please, yes, give me more of that. If something is working, if it's not broke, don't fix it. We've seen so many cop dramas. We've seen some great cop dramas. We've seen a lot of bad. And here's the issue with Heavy Rain. If we were focusing on one character and then having the other 3 interact with this one character, that'd be great. But the fact that you have all 4, as soon as you start falling in love with that one character, boom, they're going to go off to build off this other character. So you can never fully fall in love with one character because it's going back constantly trying to tell 4 different stories in one story. With Metroid, you have one character trying to do one goal. You fall in love with this character. You are rooting for this character to succeed. And then at the end, whenever, hey, I don't know, maybe she succeeds, maybe she doesn't, you are rooting for her the entire time.
I mean, to say that because Heavy Rain would have 4 characters would take away from it because we don't have time to really get invested, that's saying that ensemble shows don't work. Ensemble casts have worked for the entire time that cinema and television have been around, and HBO specifically, which is where I would assume Heavy Rain would land, has proven with Game of Thrones that they and their teams know how to do ensemble pieces. So I'm not worried about that. And why would I watch a different version of Mandalorian when Mandalorian season 2 is coming out? That's my point with the comparison, is that I don't want to turn around and see the exact same thing. Are there other cop shows? Yes, there are. But there is not cop shows that integrate sci-fi and horror into the show without being over the top. They use the sci-fi elements of the futuristic technology that is available to the police officers, and then the horror element of the father trying to find his son. If you're going to find him, you're going to have to go through these trials, these tribulations, and just playing it was terrifying. I remember not being able to hold on to the controller or shaking while I was holding on to it because I was afraid of what would happen next. And that's just a through line there. So the way it integrates these different genres, it's not just Law and Order, bad guy gets caught, blah, blah, blah. They change that up, and that's what makes the difference. It's not a retread of something that's already been successful.
So here's the thing with the ensemble shows, though. You made the reference to Game of Thrones. The reason you fall in love with these characters is because they're all together, and so they build up the relationships, and then they send them off on their own ways. One thing why Justice League failed and the DCEU failed, you have these characters we don't know anything about, and then you bring them all together. And you don't build that relationship that you would. And that's exactly what would run into the issue with Heavy Rain. It's this character. Why should I care about them? Okay, I'm starting to build this relationship. And now we're going to someone else. They're never together, so you can never see them interact until closer to the end. So why do I care about these people? And then as soon as I start caring about them, boom, it's off to someone else. Whereas with Game of Thrones, we've seen that relationship build off. We've fallen in love with these characters, and now they're off doing their own thing. It's the exact opposite with Heavy Rain.
You have a female reporter who is knocked down because she's a female. You have a father that's already lost one son. He's afraid of losing another. You have a tortured FBI agent. I just gave you 3 reasons to fall in love with 3 characters.
Time.
All right. The buzzer right here. All right. And let's go into the closings. Let's start with Pop-Up West for his closing, though. Timer begins when you begin talking.
So again, you've given me these reasons of why I should fall in love with them. I haven't fallen in love with these characters yet. It is the show's job to build up this relationship. And then whenever I start falling in love with this character, you're going to give me someone else who I have no idea who this person is. I don't see why that's a big thing. And while yes, Metroid sounds a lot like The Mandalorian, doesn't mean you have to make the same exact thing. The Mandalorian, he gets a baby Yoda and is fighting everyone, trying to keep the baby Yoda safe. With Samus, she's not trying to keep something safe. She's trying to find someone who has wronged her and take them out. So I get the similarities, but at the same point, it's not the same thing. They're different stories. They might look similar, but they're very different thing. And hey, let's ride off of the wave of The Mandalorian. Hey, this is something similar, except this is a woman trying to get vengeance for a man who has wronged her. Boom, you just have all the feminists on your side, all the people who are minorities on your side.
Okay. Okay, let's go with Ethan for his closing, though. Timer begins. We begin talking.
Just to speak to the female side of it, Heavy Rain has one of the strongest female characters in the history of games. The journey that she goes through, the battle that she faces with no one believing her because she's a woman, and her tenacity to keep fighting because she knows what is right and she knows she's smart enough to solve this mystery is absolutely going to be able to connect with females. This show isn't going to just, oh, here's this person, now we're going to move on. TV shows, it is the writer's job. They're going to give you these characters, they're going to give you these little morsels, and they're going to keep building upon that throughout the entire season, throughout the entire series. I've heard nothing about why I'm going to fall in love with Samus. I just know that she exists and she's going to fight some people. I'm going to see the torment. I'm going to see the torture that these characters go through. And the fourth character is, in fact, the killer. I'm going to see how this man works. I'm going to see how his mind works. And I'm going to know the entire time, oh, if we could just do this. But you have to watch. You have to go on this journey, this hero's journey with all of these people, travel through this with them to see the conclusion, which, again, we don't know how this concludes. I can tell you how Metroid concludes. She kills the guy.
All right, then. All right. Fellow judges, let's write down our answers. Just give me a thumbs up if you're ready. All right. Joe's ready. Joe's ready. Marine's still thinking. Just ready. All right. Oh, all right. All right. Hold on. Got his hand up. I don't know. Sorry. Ready or just take a first? Okay. Now I got his thumbs up. All right. Let's go, and I'm gonna hand on my argument start to Joe right on the here. Joe, this is a very interesting argument, and I want to know your thoughts on it and who gets the point in your eyes.
So, just to explain where I'm coming from this argument, I do not know either of these games, so it's literally about which show I would rather watch based on the pitches. I thought Jacob did a really good job of countering the Mandalorian argument. He did pretty well on that. What it came down to was the argument about the characters you'd like to focus on, or the character you'd like to focus on. And for me, I think Ethan sold it much better, just on the fact that he explained about these 4 different characters and how that you could connect with them, or if you didn't connect with one of them, you could connect with another one. If you didn't connect with that one, you could connect with another one. And I like that. I think his argument about ensemble cast working, I thought that he countered that really, really well. And just based on the pitch, the way he described the genre, the plot, and the way the show would work, for me, I'm giving my point to Ethan.
All right. I got one on Ethan. That was going up to me. Okay. This is a very tough argument to talk about, and I'm actually familiar with both of these games, and I kind of know what their story is about in general. So, both of you pull up great arguments and some good counters for each of you. But I think for me, I think the person swayed me the most during the argument, I would have to give my point to Ethan as well, because he put some examples, more examples, more different than other shows. He put some of the writing aspect because the show might be during potential that it got, and it's sort of to test the limits that not only for the game it has, but the show could be, and it's more different genres all along with it. And it also put some good counters of Jacobs on Metroid, though. So I'm actually going to give my point to Ethan. Ryan, your point, what did that matter? Which point you want to go on to?
If it had gone to me again, I actually would have picked Ethan on this one. While Jacob, he picked a great show, had a great counter, not just to Mandalorian, but also to the story of Ridley, because Ethan says it's one character, while Jacob had a great rebuttal to you have multiple characters. If Jacob had pressed on it more, talking about just if this was going to be a show just for the first season, that having to switch between different characters on the first season would have definitely influenced me on voting for him. But there wasn't. But the fact that the argument of how many seasons the show would get did not come up. So when Ethan was pitching out the show, he gave, like what Joe had said, he talked about the genres that can work for this. He talked about, even Ethan in his arguments talked about the technology used in certain story angles, and even bringing up certain elements from the game, like with the father having to save the kid, his experience of the game, and then you try to replicate or take creatively put that into a TV show. That could work. So I think Ethan had more of a very solid structure and a more complex structure on pitching this. So Ethan does get the point. He would have gotten my point if it was up to me.
With that, and your winner, the electric Ethan Live. Congratulations, Ethan. You did it. You have beaten the Papa West. Congratulations on a very great argument right here, and also great match itself. I just want to tell you how you doing. Finally earning this. Well, get a victory on your belt. Another victory.
Yeah, I mean, these things are tough. A lot of preparation goes into it, and obviously there's always things that pop up that you just don't think about, or like, oh gosh, how did I miss out on that? And so you're trying to react and respond. And I said at the beginning, I wasn't lying. I mean, Jacob very much knows this game and this league, so I definitely respect his play, and it's an honor to go against him, and felt like I had to work just a little extra to get the win.
All right. Congratulations right here. You did an excellent job. We got another W on your belt. Let's going into the unfortunate second place right here, Mr. Papa West. And Papa West, you did a good job. You were slowly sort of making a comeback right here. And I just want to say how you feeling right now.
Oh, I'm feeling good. I'm just really glad I didn't get knocked out because I still have yet to get KO'd. And that's something I hope will never happen. I honestly didn't expect to beat Ryan when I faced him last time. When I put myself up against someone before Ryan, I wasn't expecting to beat them either. They ended up having other stuff to step away. So I was not expecting to come this far. The fact that I did was really cool. But now, hey, that just means I get to focus on actually writing the questions now of the next match and then the championship match, which is always fun.
All right. That. And let's, yeah, we ain't seen sort of the last thing. All right. You good. Just want to say to Papa West right here, this is since you were kind of sort of writing questions right now, even if you're not sort of doing that with questions, do you have someone throughout the Lit TV Fights community you want to sort of challenge in the future?
Maybe Matt, my tag team partner. I think that'd be fun to go up against him. But I really don't have anyone that I want to go up against in late TV fights. I like being behind the scenes in this league. It's the other leagues I like to kick people's butts in.
Yeah, indeed. Let's go into our fellow judges in the bottom right here, which is start Mr. Joe Farrelly right here. What do you think of the arguments themselves?
Damn, Jacob West didn't win this match, but if that's the level of arguments of people who aren't winning the matches, then this league is just catching some serious fire at the moment. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to finding out who comes out on top of all these competitors and who I'll be facing to try and defend my belt. But the level of arguments here is really, really strong, and I'm going to have to up my game.
Yeah, be careful. He might come for that belt. Just be careful. All right. Let's go into Mr. Payne himself. Ryan, what do you think of this fight right here in general? The players put up an excellent job. Would you agree on that?
Yeah, without a doubt, this was a fantastic debate. Ethan really pulled his weight in this. He had a lot prepared here to where, yeah, a lot of the debate was always on him, and he was able to always counter it. Jacob, yep, even though he beat me, he does prove why he deserved that victory, and definitely, without doubt, any of these guys, if I ever come across any of these guys again in LA TV fights, well, if I come across Ethan for the first time, I'll have my homework. I come across Jacob again, I'm going to make sure that there's no judging to make sure that the rules aren't misconstrued. Sore apples. But other than that, though, I do. If these guys ever play again, I would like to be on the desk to judge that match.
All right. I just want to say right here before we head out, just want to say to all of us in Late TV Fights, to me, to Ethan, to Papa Was, to Joe Farrelly, to Mr. Ryan Payne, just want to say goodbye, take care, wash your hands, and be safe, everyone.
Stay safe.